I'm fresh out. I drank up my last bottle of Johnny Walker Red. Nobody in this big house but me in my empty bed. I'm fresh out. Baby, I'm fresh out. I had no loving since the day you went away. I'm fresh out. Yeah, no doubt. I'm fresh out. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go back to that same old place? All right, sweet home Chicago. One and one is two, you know, and two is four. The way I love you, baby, you know you never know. Said, hey, baby, don't you wanna go back to that same old place, sweet home Chicago? 4 and 2 is 6, you know what? 6 and 2 is 8. You better come on, baby, don't you? Gonna be late. Said, hey, baby, don't you wanna go back to that same ghetto place? All right, sweet home Chicago. Two and one is three, you know, and 3 and 3 is 6. If you don't come with me, you're gonna be in a heck of a fix. I said, hey, 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 mama, don't you wanna go? Lord have mercy. Back to our same ghetto town, all right, sweet home Chicago. Okay, mama, come on, get it together. You act like you don't wanna go nowhere today. Been talking about you wanna go.
Sarah, Miranda,
Here.
and Good.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
All right, gentlemen, like I said, we're gonna go items 30, number 5, and number 22, then we'll get into regular staff report. So, staff is ready for item number 30?
Mr. Chair, may I
You're recognized,
just,
Mr.
thank
Vieira.
you very much. I need to leave here around like at 3 o'clock. It's parent-teacher day for schools today in public high schools. So just FYI, I hope we're finished by then, but
Mr.
just
Burr, I
FYI.
want to be done by at least 2:15, 2:30, so we can make it happen.
Let's do it, let's do it.
All right, Mr. Cotton,
Motion to open, please? Oh, we did open this one already.
I'm sorry,
Good
did it open here?
afternoon, it's Warren, and I think Kamaria starts.
Mr. Chairman, I believe there are people on 2 for this. I don't know if they're present or not. I'd like to make sure that they are. Is there anybody on 2? Is
The
Roy
hearings are
there?
already open. Shall we leave with the hearings open? We haven't closed anything else.
Okay,
Yeah, it's been open.
Been open, correct?
yes,
All right.
yeah, but also to swear in the witnesses if it's
All right.
quasi judicial.
Mr. Cotton, you ready?
I don't see people downstairs. Let me
Please
go
raise
check.
your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, good afternoon. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle, Assistant City Attorney. This item is before you as a petition filed by Mr. Devin Shorter, the applicant for the special use 1 general request for the property located at 3007 Ybor Street. He is seeking a review of the zoning administrator's decision denying the congregate living facility, which requested relief from section 27-132. Earlier, council was provided a copy of the hearing procedures for today's review, along with sample motions and the relevant code sections. For purposes of today's hearing, City Council applies a de novo standard of review. Your decision is not limited to the record created by the zoning administrator. Instead, you can take public testimony, accept new evidence, and make a decision based on the application meeting the criteria as set forth in code section 27-132 and 27-129. Mr. Eric Cotton will provide an overview of the relief requested in the application and the basis for the city's decision. After considering all of the evidence introduced into the record of today's hearing, City Council may uphold the zoning administrator's decision and thereby deny the special use 1 application, or council may overturn the zoning administrator's decision and thereby approve the special use 1 application. With that, I will turn the presentation over to Mr. Cotton, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Mr. Cotton, you recognize, sir.
And good afternoon, Council. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. As Ms. Pettis-Mackle was saying, this is a petition for review for SU 2141. The applicant is Devin Shorter for a property at 3007 Ybor Street. Property is zoned RS50 and the applicant, wait, excuse me, can I share my screen, please? I've launched right into that without even thinking about that. Okay, now can council see the screen now?
Yes, sir. Blow it up
Okay,
for us a
thank
little
you.
bit.
Again, the applicant was proposing a congregate care facility of 6 or fewer. So a congregate care facility, as council is aware of, this is just the definition. The state preempts the city from regulating them if there's one within 1,000 feet. So this is 6 or fewer, so they're exempt from local zoning, except when if there is one within 1,000 feet, they need to ask for a waiver from the city of Tampa. To get to that process for the waiver, they apply for a special use 1. On the screen right now is the code section. And just from what I said, for 419, a separation distance is required. There is another congregate care facility at 3204 North 16th Street. So as a result, administratively, staff denies the request. The applicant then files a petition for review and goes before City Council. This is on Ybor Street in East Tampa. It is in the East Tampa Overlay District. Highlighted in red is the property in question. This was the site plan submitted. It says existing single-story residence. There is no parking on site. The parking pad that you see is actually straddles this lot and the adjacent property. And just a front view of the property. It's currently not occupied. I believe the applicant has purchased the property and is intending to rehab it to open up the congregate care facility. This is the property to the north. As you can see, this is the property next door, that subject property. This is the property to the south. And these are the properties across the street. It is a single-family neighborhood. And if the council, that's the end of my presentation. If the council has any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
I didn't hear you, Mr. Cotton. Repeat that, sir.
Pardon?
I didn't hear you that last sentence. I didn't hear you, sir.
Oh, does council have any questions I can answer for
Any
y'all?
questions for council members? Ms. Dingfellow, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, thank you, Eric. You probably put this up, and I probably missed it. Can you show a map or some other graphic that shows the proximity between the two, the existing facility and the one that's being proposed? If you
Is
have
my screen back on?
your screen?
Oh, wait, excuse me, that's me, that's a technical problem on my side. Hold on a second. There we go. So the property in question that's within the, is on 3204 North 16th Street. I don't have that highlighted. North 16th Street.
But not, your graphic's not up, well, at
Oh,
all.
I'm sorry. Is it on now?
Now it is, yeah. Expand
So
it.
this is the property in question. The other site within approximately the 700 feet is in this generalized area. I do not have it highlighted specifically. But it is at the 3200 block of North 16th Street.
Okay, so it's on the next street back and up toward the end of the
Correct.
block? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else?
Just for reference, the park on the left is Cascaden Park, where you see that ball diamond there. Then right next, just up from it, is
Sorry
21st
about that.
Street. And then on the east of 15th Street is Sanchez Street, then comes 16th, 17th, 18th, Ebor, 16th, comes Sanchez Street, Ebor, 16th, 17th, and all the way up, heading to the east. And I would imagine what he pointed to was on 16th Street and 24th Avenue, the other one. That's what I'm thinking, but I'm not sure, because I couldn't see all of it.
I'm sorry, I'm having some technical mess up here, but let me go back to there we go. Yes. As Mr. Miranda was saying,
Mr. Cotton, it was denied merely because of the proximity, correct?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. At staff level, we cannot approve that, and it requires a waiver. The waiver process is a special use application that will eventually be heard by city council.
All right, any other questions, gentlemen? All right, I guess we'll hear from the applicant. We swear the applicant in, please.
I can't see them.
Can't see them? We got them on the screen. Got them now?
Please raise your right hand. To be,
IT, we can't hear them.
Can you hear me now?
We got you.
Okay, good.
Please-
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
please
City
raise your
Council.
right hand to be sworn in. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Thank you.
All right. My name is Devon Shorter. This is Ariana Jameson. We're the owners of J&S Group Homes, which is a provider for APD. APD is Agency for Persons with Disability. A little bit about myself. I graduated from Clark Atlanta University with a Bachelor in Criminal Justice. After graduating college, we had started a nonprofit, Trust Mentoring. It's for a youth nonprofit organization that gives back to the inner city youth throughout East Tampa. While doing that, I worked for the City of Tampa Parks and Recs at Grant Park and DeSoto Park. And at night, I would work at a group home that I work at right now. So we're here today because we had to apply for the special use application, which was denied because it's another living assistance facility within 1,200 feet of the property we have. We would like to appeal the denial for the city council to approve our special use application so we can give out jobs to the community and be able to help families place their loved ones in a family environment instead of a big institution. We're also here to address some of the concerns of some of the residents that would not like our application to be approved, and I would like to address the parking situation as well. So one of the residents had a concern about safety for her daughter. I have 3 daughters under the age of 10. Ariando has a younger sister under the age of 10 and a daughter as well. So we know how important safety is. But for the clients that we will be getting, they will be coming from the state. We'll be able to sit down with the families and the case managers to make sure it's a good fit for the community as well as a group home. Next, one of the residents was worrying about if her property value would go down. I had talked to a couple of appraisers, and they had told me since it's still going to be a residential home, the property value wouldn't depreciate. And then about the parking, I talked to John Marsh. He works for the city. He had told us if we don't expand the driveway 18 and make it an 18 by 18 pad, we will have to use property within 1,000 feet of the property we have at 3007 Ybor Street. And we'll just have to get permission from the owners saying that we'll be using the 18 by 18 pad for parking. Also, the resident was concerned about traffic and like visitation and the clients driving and the clients being in and out the house. The clients will not be able to drive. And if we have like visitations, we'll make a set schedule so each client will have visitations, visitations one by one, so it wouldn't be too much traffic on the street.
Hello, my name is Ariando Jameson. I'm gonna give you a little background about myself. I was raised on the next street over, which is 17th Street. It's adjacent to Ybor Street. I've been living there for the last 28 years. My mom purchased her house there. I work for the City of Tampa NEAT team, which does the neighborhood cleanup enrichment program. I went off to college to Howard University, came back home, and worked several different jobs. I worked construction. I opened up a trucking company. I also worked at a group home, and I always found myself coming back to the need of helping people. I currently own 3 other houses on the next street over, which is 17th Street. My mom owned a house, my auntie owned a house. We essentially own 5 different properties in the neighborhood. And I always find myself going back to helping people. Right now, I provide housing for people on SSI, which supplemental disability people, older people, provide affordable living for them. And essentially all we're trying to do is provide a home that's safe, family environment for people of need, people who have disability. We're not having people who come home who's convict from jail. We're just trying to provide a house for people who are in need. We also want to provide jobs for people. So we're doing 2 things, just providing, and that's what God brought on my heart, on Divine Heart. And like I said, this community, I've been in this community since all my life. I was born in Ponce Leon Projects, which is adjacent to 24th and 17th Street. And like I said, my mom bought her first house 28 years ago on 17th Street, which is the next street over. Like I said, we own several other properties as well as other relatives and family members of mine. Thank you. Appreciate y'all for allowing us to come here and force what we're trying to do.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions, council? I just have one question. You said the state, and you said disabilities. Can you elaborate on the state and disabilities for me? I'm very familiar with that community.
Mm-hmm.
Very familiar with the whole area, what happens on 24th Ave, 23rd Ave, and that little hub right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a concern of the residents. So I need to know exactly what are we putting there, who's going in there, because I understand their concern.
So like the clients that I work with right now are from like the state. They're not just from the City of Tampa. So it's like, you know, handicapped, like I serve housing, you know, clients
Can you slide over to the microphone? Yeah. Thank you.
It's clients that's not just from Tampa. It's going to be clients throughout the state. APD, they you know, they issued the clients to the group homes, and the clients are, you know, people that can't take care of themselves, that need assistance with, you know, bathing, dressing, eating, you know, people that have cerebral palsy, that's handicapped, that can't really take care of themselves. They're not going to be clients that's going to be in and out the house that can, you know, just leave when they want to. They'll be supervised 24/7 by a staff member.
All right, so basically this is gonna be a house for people with severe disabilities.
Yes, not
Can't-
coming
can't-
from, the institution as far as like criminals or anything like that.
Like
These
a
are
halfway house.
nothing to do with people who may have got in trouble with the courts or the law. These are people who has some type of physical disability that we plan on taking care of, and it's around-the-clock staffing, so.
Yeah, like I have an example, like my grandma, younger sister. We just had to move her down from Unadilla, Georgia. And we're having issues like trying to find somebody to take care of her because my grandma, she's getting old, she can't take care of herself. And everybody has, you know, work, you know, we had to work. So those are the type of clients we will be having that, you know, that is family oriented, but they don't have time to take care of their loved ones. So we'll be trying to provide that type of service.
And it's youth, not older people, but youth.
Okay, all right, Mr. Miranda, you recognize?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. At time when you applied, when you bought this home, I guess you gentlemen do your due diligence and you realize what kind of clients you were going to have. And from what I hear, you don't have any cases other than those that need assistance in living, not any mental cases or anything like that from what I've heard so far. And I'm not buying the whole thing that it devalues the houses because the houses, they're already devalued. They can't go any lower. I lived on Sanchez Street, so I know what I'm telling you, my first part of my life. However, there's always a however. However, the question becomes then, when did you realize that you had another same type of housing close by within 1,200 feet? I've had many cases, some on Havana Avenue, that they applied, and they have one house next to the other house. And I voted against that. And I wasn't proud of it, but I had to because the law said 1,200 feet. So where are you gentlemen located from the other living facility?
We're actually 700 and I believe 30 feet when we got our paper back. But the other facility is a adult. It's not a living facility. It's an adult home where the lady actually live in the facility. So it's a different type of facility. I think it's an adult care home. And I spoke with the lady. Her name is Novette Thompson. We spoke with her, and she even gave us a pointer, like with the adult care home, with the live-in per se. It's a lot for one person. She said, you know, to live in that home by herself, what she does, and she take care of people with disability. She was actually telling us that if we can do that per se, but that's a lot on one person. So we don't want to spread ourselves thin trying to just do an adult care home. And we actually spoke with that lady. It's actually, I think it's on the paperwork, it's like 730 feet away.
And the next thing I know, I remember the houses there, not all of them, but most of them, you walked in, you had the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, and then the rooms on the other side of the house. And maybe one room behind the kitchen. I'm not sure how that one is, but that's exactly how they were built. And so I can tell you about all of them houses there. Most of the kids that I went to high school lived right around that area, all of them.
We actually owned a house on Sanchez. We sold it about 3 years ago.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
No, sir.
All right, we'll hear from any right on the second floor on this item.
I believe there is somebody who's on the second floor.
All right,
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
yes?
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. I just wanted to clarify something that the applicant stated regarding the parking pad. If Mr. Cotton could just clarify for the record, the location of the parking pad if there is a parking pad?
So Eric Cotton, Development Coordination, the parking pad that's currently on the site straddles the property line. It does not solely belong to the applicant or the petitioner who's before you today. The survey it shows it as on both properties. However, with the parking, just to clarify the issue, The required number of parking spaces for a congregate care home is the same as for a single-family dwelling unit. They both require 2 spaces. The park is a non-conforming characteristic of use. If council were to approve this today, by code, there's no requirement for them to provide those 2 parking spaces. They don't have the parking now, it's just a non-conformity that will continue to exist. So the requirement to have parking would not be triggered by the opening of a congregate care facility.
Mr. Randall, you recognize?
If I remember, sir, Mr. Chairman, the parking, if you had any in those days, you had a narrow strip either on the east side, on the north side, or the south side of the house, running about 70, 80 feet back, and it was called LIFO, FIFO. First in, last out, last in, first out. So you had to park your car behind the one that was going to leave last, so you could have 2 spaces to park. But there was very little street parking unless it was all public parking, because there was narrow roads, about 22, 24 foot wide, the road was. And I'm not saying that's what this is, because I haven't been there in years. Do you have any parking, any strip on the side of the house going from east to west?
John Marsh, he's over transportation for the city of Tampa, and he had told me after we get approved by the city council, we'll have to go back in and expand the driveway, or we'll have to use an 18 by 18 pad within 1,000 feet of 3007, which Ariando have other properties on 17th Street that we can use.
And we also can extend the driveway if we plan on, we have spoken with the neighbor next to us. So it's basically like he said, we're a shared parking space. Majority of the property parking space is ours. If you look out, if he pull up the survey from the property, and we can also expand it. So it's one lot there, and we also add another lot to basically have the 2 parking spaces on the side of the house.
Any questions? Mr. Denfeld, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to clarify 2 things. Number one is there was a statement made, and I just want I want the record to be clear on it, because I do have some experience with that agency, and also it appears to me, I think I saw your application, but I think it was stated that there would not be any folks with mental disabilities, and I just want you guys to clarify that, because it's my understanding that the agency could place folks, with certain types of mental disabilities, but maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me.
No. It's up to the group home to accept what type of clients they want. There's different levels. They got behavioral, which we're not approved for. That's the ones that that need the extra help, and then they have the one that's underneath it. And like I said, we could sit down with the case managers and the families to see what clients we want to accept. So since 2015, I work with Royal Care. Mr. Dane was the owner of Royal Care. He accepted, behavioral type of clients. Now I work for Jolie. Jolie Care had took over for Mr. Dane Royal Care, and him and his wife, they only accept, clients that doesn't have outstanding behaviors
Okay. So, and I appreciate that sort of nuance, but I think the real question, perhaps it needs to bounce upstairs to legal and Camaria. Is it true that any approval of the group home doesn't necessarily come with constraints in terms of, what type of individuals would go into that group home? Is that correct, Ms. Pettis-Mack? Or Eric?
She's on mute, I think.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Are you asking Councilman Dingfelder whether or not you could
No.
condition? Okay.
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm not suggesting we condition it. What I'm asking is, and I'm not necessarily judging the case at all. Matter of fact, I'm probably very supportive of this because it's a need in the community. But I just want to make sure the record's clear that if we approve it, we can't tell the agency what type of folks are going to go in this home. That will be the agency's decision. Is that correct? In other words, this approval is sort of a blanket approval, and it runs with the land, just like most of our zoning does. And 5 or 10 years from now, these guys sold the business, sold the property. You know, I have a feeling that, you know, no matter what they might say or do today, doesn't necessarily matter that much. And I say that with all due respect to the gentleman, but I'm just trying to get a clarification of the law.
That's correct, sir.
Tell me what's correct.
When you said that you are either denying or approving the congregate living facility, not trying to regulate or what type of clients they receive.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure we're abundantly clear for the record. Like I say, I'm going to support this because I think it's worthwhile and important. But I always want to make sure the record's clear.
All right.
And I did provide City Council, the members, the code section. I provided the code section of 27-132, 27-129, and also for your reference, 27-130. That should be in your packet. And the last page should be your sample motion.
Thank you. Anyone to speak on this item on the second floor?
Yes, there's someone.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is
Please,
Sylvia Martinez.
Will you hold your hand up for us, please? Swear you in?
Say again?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Sylvia Martinez. I own the property directly across the street from them, which is 3004 Ybor Street. I just settled there with my 10-year-old daughter about 4 months ago. I'm also ex-military, and I also have a disability, which includes a 50% mental health disability, so I understand and respect their desire to provide this service for other people. However, I don't feel comfortable with having this directly across the street from my house, because I don't know the nature of the people that are eventually going to be housed in there, and they're going to be having mental health issues. And I just won't feel comfortable with my daughter being outside when I know there are 6 individuals across the street, which I don't know what issues they're dealing with or what could they possibly do or how that can affect the neighborhood, you know. So also, there's already another facility within less than 800 feet from here. So the laws there for a reason, is to prevent the makeup of the neighborhood from being affected negatively by all these facilities. So why can't they have it somewhere else where the street can accommodate the space that they're trying to do, because there's already no parking in the street. I have a driveway which is directly across the street from them, and their next door neighbor, which lives in 3003 Ybor Street, they're to their left. He has nowhere to park. Across the street, he doesn't have a driveway, he doesn't have parking, and there's a no parking sign directly across from his house in the corner. So he's parking on my property, in front of my property every single day, and he's parking right next to within less than a feet from the exit of my driveway. So I was researching, and there's section 15-43 of Code of Ordinances, which rules down on the parking, and this says that there should be no parking within 10 feet from the edge of a public or private driveway, except in meter spaces, which is to the left or the right of my driveway. There should be no one parking there. And also no parking within 20 feet, within 25 feet across from my driveway if the street is less than 25 feet wide, which it is, because that would obstruct me when I'm trying to get in and out of my driveway. So their neighbor next door from them is constantly parking right next to my driveway within less than a feet, which is breaking the ordinance. And I haven't reported him because I know he has nowhere else to park. Okay, so there's already a parking situation in our street. It's a very narrow street, there's no parking, and they have no driveway to accommodate the people that are trying to put in there. And even if they put a pad away from the property, there's still gonna be traffic going in and out of our street, which is a very narrow street. And the neighbor on my left side, he also doesn't have a driveway. He parks across in front of my house. And when there's two cars parked on both sides of the street, there's no way to get through there. So it's just a situation that's it would definitely, I think, negatively
Thank you,
affect.
ma'am. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have anybody else to speak on this item on the second floor?
No, there's no one else.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any registered speakers to speak on this item?
No one is registered for this item.
All right, gentlemen, you have a chance to rebut. The applicant?
Yes.
Like we said, the parking situation with us and those people with no driveway has no bearings on what we got. We actually have, like I said, shared parking space already, and we also plan on building out on that pad on the side of our house. So what the other neighbors have, that has no bearings on us. We can't control that. That's out of our control. Another thing is I submitted some letters from neighbors in the area who has no problem with what we're trying to do, as well as got signed petition from other neighbors in the area with their phone numbers, and you can contact them. Spoke with them, and they know me because, like I said, I'm from the area, and it's our neighborhood. It's not just ours or hers, it's ours, and it's just a community where we're just trying to fill a void where I know that people need. I have a cousin right now who's 28 years old, who's in Temple General Hospital that I plan on going to see, who's in need because he has different disabilities. I have a cousin who died at 24 years old because he was in need because he had different disabilities that he wasn't catered to. So this is what we're trying to do. We're not trying to bring anything to the community that don't need to be there. Like I said, we fellas who went off to school, came back home to a community that we know that we grew up in. One of you guys spoke of Cascadian Park. That's where I grew up playing youth football. Like I said, I went to Tampa Bay Tech, Lato High School, came back home from graduating from Howard University to a community that I just want to serve and help where I can help and assist.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized, Mr. Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, the documents that were referenced by the applicant, I just want council to know that I have distributed those to you, and they are in the record. The petition, the letters of support, and additionally, what's also in the record are emails that had been received and forwarded by Mr. Cotton in his office, and that also was provided to the clerk. Thank you.
Move to close.
Second.
Mr. Maniscalco has moved. Mr. Citrus has second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right.
And again, Mr. Chairman, the motion has been provided, the sample motions have been provided to
Yes,
council.
I think we left off on Mr. Carlson, correct? So it'll be Mr. Citro's turn?
Mr. Chair, I cannot support this. Councilman Dingfelder might be better to read this.
All right, Mr. Dingfelder.
Yes, sir. Before I make the motion to overturn the zoning administrator's denial, I just wanted to preface, I think these type of small, very small group homes are extremely important. They do fill a void. I had a stepbrother who recently passed from COVID at the age of 70-something, but he suffered from mental illness and for 50 years, and he was in group homes of very caring people, and I just think they're appropriate. I think it's better when they're small like this. I think this one's limited to 5 beds, and as far as that street is concerned, Joe and I are both very familiar with the street because we delivered Meals on Wheels for our Rotary Club up and down those streets. And the parking is bad, but it's bad for everybody. You know, a lot of those homes don't even have driveways. I think, Mr. Miranda, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably because most of the people didn't have cars back when those little casitas were built. But anyway, I feel for the young lady across the street. but I'm sure that, that once this operation gets going, and I'm gonna encourage the gentleman to reach out to her, maybe between first and second reading. And, well, I guess there is no second reading, but anyway, just reach out to her, and I think you had 2 or 3 oppositions, and, you know, introduce yourselves, let them know what you're doing, and give them your phone number. In case there's ever any issues, they have somebody directly to call. I can't make you do that, but I encourage you to do it. So with that, Mr. Chairman, in regard to SU 1-21-41, 3007 Ybor Street, I'll move to overturn the zoning administrator's denial of special use application with that number, because the petitioner has demonstrated that its petition is consistent with the applicable general standards set forth in section 27-132 and 27-129, and more specifically that this particular petition and location is as related to the existing one, even though it's within the radius of the other one. I don't really see where the one would relate to the other. The other property is a block away and on a different street, and so therefore I don't really see any type of conflict. And I hope and pray that I'm right, and that the neighborhood gets along fine with this operation. Thank you.
All right, a motion by Mr. Dingfelder, second by Mr. Maniscalco. Mr. Miranda, you ready?
I'm just going to go by my own history. If you check all my votings on these type of situations, my record has been very clear that I do not vote for anyone within 1,200 feet of another one. You can check that from the day I got elected.
What I can say, I'm gonna support it with caution. 'Cause I know how some of these homes can be, and the type of folks that say they're going to allow to stay in that facility. Again, I'm gonna support it with caution, but I'm hoping that we're true to what we're telling us today. There's been a motion on the floor, Mr. Dingfelder, second Mr. Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Viera?
Yes.
Citro?
No.
Miranda?
No.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried with Citro and Miranda voting no.
Mr. Chairman?
You're recognized, Mr.
And,
Vera.
and thank you. I wanted to wait until after our vote to say this. I just wanted to commend you all on and again, my personal sentiments on group homes had nothing to do with my vote on a legal basis, but I just wanted to commend you all for what y'all are doing, like Councilman Dingfelder, having had a family member in a group home. My oldest brother is mentally disabled and lives in a group home half the week in Brandon, so I know all about it, including a lot of times the community concerns and all that kind of stuff. But you know, y'all started off by talking about your intent and your rationale and just your moral compass on why you're doing this, and I just want to salute it. And after y'all are up and running, I was telling my assistant I'd love to come and visit you guys, and I mean it, and see the good work that y'all are doing. And did you say you're from Howard University? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, the Madam Vice President of United States alumni, as well as myself.
Yeah, I was going to joke that here in Tampa, I mean, a lot of great alumni, Justice Thurgood Marshall. Here in Tampa, we know that as the law school of Delano Stewart. So 1964, if I remember, when Delano graduated from Howard. So to call that a historic college is a hell of an understatement, but just that's a big deal. So thank you very much. God bless you guys.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Dingfelder, you're item number 5. Is Chief Tripp on the line?
Thank you, gentlemen. You're done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Item 5, I requested just a quick discussion with the fire chief, if she's available.
Yes, she is.
And specifically, I just want to narrow this discussion because I don't want anybody to think that I'm against the purchase of fire trucks that are definitely needed, or rescue trucks that are definitely needed by the community and by the fire department. But Mr. Carlson and I speak pretty often about single source agreement. In this case, we have $1 million purchase of, looks like three of these vehicles. The city and the fire department is justifying single source because they want standardization year after year so they can accumulate vehicles that are the same for purposes of maintenance and for purposes of operation. And Chief, you can correct me when I go astray. But I think that's the reason and that's the justification. My concern and my question over the weekend in looking at this is, you know, are we at least talking to other companies, you know, that are in the business? Maybe we should standardize with 2 companies within our fleet, and then that way we would always make sure that they are competitive with each other in terms of price and quality. But I don't think that we necessarily do that, and that does concern me a little bit, because when you have a relationship, a long-term relationship with just one vendor, what's the motivation of that vendor to give you the best price? And so anyway, Chief, long-winded explanation. I wanted to explain to council why I pulled it, and I'll turn it over to you if that's okay with Mr. Chairman.
Before you go there, Chief, I think Chief Tripp has been doing some due diligence, and she's been traveling, looking at some of these vehicles. So I'm hoping she'll talk about that when she explains to you the rationale behind that. But I do agree we should be looking at multiple companies for competition. Competition does make it better, and also you get some better price when you do have competition. So I'll let you go ahead and speak, Chief Tripp.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, Chief Tripp, Temp Fire Rescue. So once again, thank you for this opportunity. And of course, as I continue to try to support Temp Fire Rescue as far as providing the best effort and safety for these young men and women, I did a little bit more research to figure out exactly where the single source existed, when did it start, how did it start, how long we've been involved with this, with Braun. And of course, only been officially in the seat a little over a month. I'm learning more and more stuff out. So I did a little bit more research. Temp Fire Rescue has been with Braun since 2012. Prior to that, we was with Medic Master and MedTech. Both of those companies, I don't want to use the word go under, but they went out of business. Currently, the reason we did choose Braun is because of the integrity, the structure of the module, the box. The box is actually welded together, the sides, as opposed to bonded with a tape. Braun is the only company that actually provide that service, and it was more for safety. You know, they did a couple of crash tests and realized the box, if it flip over that box, the integrity of that box is going to stay together. So I agree with you about single sourcing. Since I've been in this position, I actually have been looking at a lot more single sources. That information was brought to me by purchasing. So we are putting other items out, when I say to bid, giving other people the opportunity to bid on the product that we need. But of course, we want to keep in mind the safety of not only the patients in the community when we transport to the hospital, but also to the crew members. So that is one of the reasons why once I went back and did a little bit more research to actually figure out where did this come from, how did it start, and what was the whole purpose of it. Now, as far as another company being involved, I really have not did any research on another company. I do know, talking to local agencies within the local area, Hillsborough County just switched over to the Braun product because of the safety and integrity of the structure of the box.
If there's anybody else.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
Well, not seeing any, Mr. Chairman. And Chief, we appreciate that. And I know you've been juggling 30 different issues in the 6 months or so that you took over as interim chief. And we appreciate all you're doing. This is something that Greg Spearman will tell you, this is something that I've been harping on for more than a decade, and I just like to. I think the public expects the government to get out there and look at all the available products and try and bid as much as possible. And I know there are times and there are reasons when we don't, but let's just just know that this is going to be kind of a regular question, especially on these big purchases. But I wish you well on this one, and I will support it.
I'll move item number 5.
Item number 5 is the move of Mr. Citro, second by Mr. Collins. You have a question, sir?
I just wanted to add, he mentioned my name, and I just want to add, constituents have been very concerned over the last couple of years about single source purchasing and other issues. And so I appreciate your due diligence. I know Chief of Staff and others are looking at it, and it's reduced substantially since we started a couple years ago. But thank you for your diligence in looking at it.
Motion on the floor, Mr. Citro, second by Mr. Maniscalco.
Third.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Viera.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco. And Goods.
Yes,
Motion carried unanimously.
thank you. Item number
Thank you,
22.
Chief.
Thank you.
Item 22.
That passed already.
No, 22, we pulled that.
Yeah, no, but it passed already. We had a separate vote earlier.
Yeah, we
Mr.
did.
Carlton did all other than, maybe we
No,
didn't.
we didn't. No, we didn't.
Talked about
We
it, but we
voted.
didn't vote on it.
We
You're
voted.
right. Yeah, you
Right.
voted, that's right.
That's right, you pulled.
All right, Rob Rosser, number 22. We can get out of here by at least 2:45. We can't hear you. IT, can we get his mic working?
How about now? Can
We
you hear me
got you.
okay? Okay, thank you. We have before you item number 22 in your packet. It's for the funding for the Cross Bay Ferry. It's a four-way agreement between St. Pete, Pinellas, and Hillsborough County and the city. What's different between the pilot and now is that the Hillsborough County is the lead agency instead of St. Pete. And this is a plan to make it longer term. And so the pilot had been 6 months before, and now they want to ramp up between 9 and 10 months and then eventually to 12-month service. And I wanted to make sure you understood what the funding and how that would work. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you had about the funding, so I can.
Rob, I just want for the record where the city's portion of monies are coming from. Because I can't vote on anything that's coming from the general fund, so reference a ferry. So I just need to know where that money's coming from, for the record.
So the portion that's coming from the mobility department is coming from the gas tax. It's not coming from the general fund. It's not coming from ad valorem.
Well,
Gas tax goes.
gas
into the
tax
general
is a
fund.
gas tax. The only ones that it doesn't come from is the enterprise fund, so it's gotta come from either gas tax, or it means roads, right?
Yeah, I said
So
gas
it
tax.
comes from roads, so that's where you're getting it from.
Sorry, it's from the gas tax.
Well, that is roads. Gas tax is used to fix our roads. I see the big guy now on TV, how you doing?
I recognize you a second. Mr. Vieira? Mr. Vieira, you recognized first, sir? Y'all come back
Thank you,
to
sir. Monetary-wise, how much money are we talking about? Because last time I voted to support this, this was under CRA money.
It is.
Supported by the CAC.
It is. The downtown CAC just voted on it this past week. I just spoke with Michelle Van Loan and Valerie Farrell, who gave me that update, that it was, they would cover all the funding except for what was being pledged by the mobility department to that effect.
And if I may, how much is coming from mobility?
50,000 is coming from mobility on an annual basis, and that the way the contract's set up is we can cancel the service at any June. So after a season is complete, we can give them notice that, hey, we don't want to do the service anymore, and we can cancel. All four agencies wanted to have that as an option.
And if I may, just last question, how much is coming from the CRA?
I believe first year is 125, and then it'll be whatever the other rate. The final amount is around 255, and then that would be minus the 50 that came from that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Moran, I think you recognize that.
Yes, sir, thank you. If, by accident, I found out that way back when Jameis Winston was a senior at Florida State, I wanted to go see Florida State and Boston College play. And I went to Massachusetts, and I stayed in a city called Salem, the city of the ghost. And guess who the city was sponsoring? This same ferry. And guess what the amount was? $700,000 a year. You don't believe me? Call the Massachusetts paper in Salem, and they got a whole article on it. And that's what they were paying. And in fact, if I remember, because I'm going by memory, if you didn't live in the county, your fare from Salem to Boston and return was $40. If you lived as a county resident, it was $19, and if you lived as a city resident, it was $17. And here we're doing it for $10. So we're losing money twice.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That's all I gotta say.
Mr. Dingfelder, you recognize?
So just in terms of process, and I don't know if Michelle is on this call as well. So the CAC just recommended approval of this this week. That's what you said, Rob?
Yes, it was brought up in the planning budget from June, and obviously we got more information as it became available. But the whole proposal was reviewed by them in detail at their last meeting.
And so the presumption I have to make is that we as the CRA board have not yet seen this contract, or have we already approved it? I don't remember.
That's correct. It would have to come to you separately, but the agreement would be is, do we want to have the service so that they can rent the boats coming up? Obviously, my understanding from what Michelle explained was it was put in the preliminary budget in June, and that was part of the overall budget and would have been funded for this upcoming year. So, but they got more detail on it in this last one for specific approval.
Well, I have concerns because where I'm reading and where I've been told, this is gonna change every year. So I'm just wondering where this money, and again, when Vic comes on about this gas tax, because of this gas tax money, Mr. Miranda said, that's roads. So I'll need a little bit more explanation on that. So, because I'm understanding that this is gonna change every year, gentlemen. So.
Well, all 4 years are listed in the agreement, so you'll be able to see each of the 4 years in the agreement. I just don't have them.
Looks like Morris's.
Well, let's go with Vic first. Vic, you're recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair and Council. Vic Vide, Director of Mobility Department. The mobility share of $50,000 a year is coming from micro mobility funds. This is our scooter pilot program. And again, the goal there is that any mode that is not single occupant vehicle is very aligned with first mile, last mile services like the micro mobility program. We've also leveraged micro-mobility programs to forward our Vision Zero Action Plan and other safety studies that are in line with the spirit of the micro-mobility program. I wanted to clarify because it's not gas tax and it is not ad valorem money.
Well, why was we told it was gas tax? I mean, I'm just asking. I mean, I was told it's coming from gas tax. So now you're telling me it's not coming from gas tax?
That's correct. It's coming from micro-mobility fees that we collect from the scooter companies.
Micro-mobility fees.
If I ask one more.
You're recognized, Mr.
And I'd like for the city administration to check everything I said because I go in my memory. I want to make sure that I'm right. Salem, Massachusetts, the area was putting $700,000, if I recall, into this every single year. And now this is lagging with 4 entities. And you look at the money now we spent the last 3 years, we could have done a hell of a lot better to help somebody else in the city. But go on.
I'm going to go Mr. Carlson, has been heard from, and I'll come back to Mr. Dingfelder.
Yeah, just a few comments. I think this is the third time this has come up for us, and the first time it came up, it was a walk-on agenda item, and which blindsided all of us, and it passed. I voted for it. And then in the next 24 hours, I got a whole bunch of phone calls with somebody was trying to throw me under the bus to say that my firm had a conflict in working with this ferry service. And to whoever that is or was, sometimes when you're looking at people who are actually not doing ethical things, then the people you're looking at turn around and point it back at you. And so just for disclosure, so everybody knows, when this ferry service started 4 years ago, I think, my firm, along with many others, applied for an RFP. I won't remember the numbers exactly right, but we got like $25,000 and we put in $50,000 in pro bono time. So the $25,000 didn't even cover our costs. The following year, they reduced our budget down to $5,000. I think we put in $20,000 or $30,000 in pro bono. So we did that because we believed in the service, we believed in the idea. The third year, they didn't hire us. And that happened to be just before I got on city council. And so since we in effect got fired or didn't get renewed, then then if I was voting with a conflict, I would vote against it. Instead, I voted for it twice because I believe in it and I've invested a lot of my time and money and my staff in it. I don't want to get into a long description of politics of this. Mayor Kreisman was a big champion of this, and he went to the other governments to get support for it. And the original idea, the one that I think would match Mr. Miranda's concept, would be that they need 2 boats that go on an hour headway every day. People on both sides of the bay want this as a commuter service. They want it as a reliable commuter service. What happened is one of the governments, the former mayor here, didn't like the people involved in it, so he retaliated by not giving enough money and not supporting the process. And as a result, they didn't get enough money to have 2 boats going at 1 hour headways. And it was set up in the beginning to be more like a tourist attraction. And what they need to do eventually is get to 1 hour headways. And what will happen is that once they get the money to do the 1 hour headways with 2 boats, then people can rely on it as a commuter service, as a regular form of transportation, and then the subsidy will go down. The problem is that the way it's been structured because of political animosity a few years ago is that it was underfunded in the beginning. Once it's funded with the right kind of service, then the subsidy will go down eventually because the market will catch up. They saw, in the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years, my firm has not been involved at all, but they reduced the price of it, I think even free for a while, and the ridership went way up. I've never even been on it, but people say it's great, and it's a form of transportation that people want. They want an alternative, and so I'm very supportive of it, even though they fired us. And look forward to supporting it going forward. Hopefully we'll get the right kind of service in the future so it can be very successful.
The way I do math, that makes 75,000 getting fired.
We're going to bring this in for Atlanta just shortly. Mr. Randa, Mr. Dingfellow, and we're going to bring this in for Atlanta.
I'm fine.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Bill, thanks for that additional information. The couple of years that we've been voting on this, I've been supportive of the ferry. I think it's an interesting alternative. But I'm a little concerned about the process. It's my understanding that they're asking the CRA, us, to fund this, but the contract is in front of us today. So we haven't, as far as I'm concerned, we as the CRA haven't approved the money, but here we are voting and giving the mayor authority to execute the contract. And I think it's the cart before the horse. I think we as the CRA there should be a presentation to us at our next CRA meeting, a full-blown presentation about the ferry. How is it doing? What's the ridership? Are people using it to commute? Is it just for events? Et cetera, et cetera. And also, what is the potential financial risk? Because I thought it was just 200,000 or 250,000, but now somebody says that number could go up. Mr. Chairman indicated that. So we're the fallback on that. So anyway, with all of that, Morris and Vic, with all of that, I'm going to propose that we defer this item 22 until after we, as the CRA, decide to fund it.
Can I interrupt?
To me, it only makes sense.
Ms. Massey, you recognize, sir.
Dingfelder, one of the reasons why it's here today, and yes, it is a little out of sync process-wise, and I would agree with that. But there is a deadline where all 4 agencies have committed to working together to have the interlocal in place by August 15th, and that is why it's here before you today. We have, on occasion, authorized contracts contemplating the funding source, which we thought was relatively secure. Obviously, it should come before the CRA. It's been reflected in your projected budgets. It's been approved by the CAC. So I think the administration felt like this could move forward, and the Revenue Finance thought this could move forward, given special circumstances that we're under here. The other thing I wanted to make sure that council was aware of is that this contract, while it is technically a 4-year contract, the price does escalate year from year, but it's set forth in the contract. It doesn't vary. It's $175,000 for the first year, $190,000 for the second year. That goes up a little bit for the third year and a little bit more for the fourth year. The contract also provides that we can cancel the contract at any year by June 1st of that year. So one of the things I would recommend, if you are willing to move forward with this today, is that perhaps you make a motion to have the administration come before you either as the CRA or as city council, or maybe as both, in May of each year to present how the ferry is been operating, whether it's been meeting its ridership goals, whether we think it's really doing what we thought it would accomplish when we authorized it entering into this contract, so that we're in a position, if we don't think it's meeting its goals and you all have concerns about it, to cancel it before June 1 of the succeeding year, so it doesn't continue forward. So those would be the things I would suggest for your consideration today.
Point of privilege. Mr. Massey, this is what what upsets me is that, and then sometimes the administration gets upset with council because council's not doing what they want them to do at that particular time. It's not fair to us that you're not bringing the information to us. Why bring this to us in the ninth hour? You folks knew the ferry was coming up, but we get hit with these things in the ninth hour, and then council's mainly to blame. Council's not working with the administration. We're making things slow and moving things back, and that's not fair. I'm just going to be honest. That's not fair, and I think we need to stop doing that and give us the information. This council is willing to work with this administration. As long as we have the facts, we're transparent, and we have the information. Now, I'm teed off because I've been told gas tax. Now I got Vic telling me, no, it ain't gas tax money. So, it kind of puts us in a situation where we talk about transparency, sir, but we got to be fair with the process. It's the process, not just the fact that we want to make something done, but the process.
I understand. I apologize it got here today. Frankly, the negotiations just took that long with the various agencies. When you have 4 different local governments looking at an agreement, it takes a while to negotiate its terms. The resolution actually does identify the gas tax as the source of the $50,000. So I don't mean to disagree with Mr. Beatty, but that is the source of the $50,000. All the rest would come from the CRA and would be subject to your review and appropriation.
But how could that be, Mr. Massey? If Vic is saying it's not gas tax, but we're putting gas tax in a resolution, and I'm going to sign up on a resolution that says gas tax, but the man is saying it's not, I have a problem with that too, sir. So my thing is we need to get what it really is, because I don't want to be the chairman and sign off it's gas tax when this man is telling me it's not gas tax. I'm just saying.
Gene is hanging there. I don't know.
That's Gene. I mean, I'll let Gene speak, but I'm just saying, I think Mr. Dingfel's right. We don't want to prolong this, but I think this needs to come, be presented to the CRA as council when this come, maybe next week, because I just think that we don't have all the facts. They're not all right there because it seemed like we dropped the ball on something. We fumbled the ball getting to the goal line. Gene, you recognize, Ms. Duncan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, City Council members. I want to apologize for the confusion on the fund source. We have been looking at the gas tax, which is a legitimate option for us to use, and Vic Beatty correctly pointed out a creative option to that after the resolution was prepared that we thought would give us an opportunity to use funds from our scooter program, which are very limited in how we can use them, and that would not tax or not hit our gas tax, which is always, as you know, something that's very limited in terms of what we get and what we can use it for. So apologize for that confusion. What we were contemplating is if there was still time, being that it still has to go to the CRA, we would make that substitution. But we regret that we weren't able to be clear on that from the beginning. And we would commit to you that anything we bring before you, we will always be accurate on the fund source, because we know that's an important part of your decision making.
Okay, we keep saying 4 agencies, but the CRA is an agency. That's 5 agencies, I count. So identify those agencies for me, Gene.
Well, we have the St. Pete, Hillsborough County, City of Tampa, Pinellas County, and then of course the CRA board. I don't know if you want to call it an agency. I don't know if that's the legal term, but it's certainly
Florida statute, it's an agency.
Body have a decision.
Per Florida statute, it's an agency. It says 5 agencies, and they should be identified as 5 agencies. They're giving money, should be City of Tampa. It should be City of Tampa. It should be CRA City of Tampa because that's 5 agencies. Anyone else?
Yes.
So we can bring this in for a landing, what we're gonna do with it. Mr. Dingfelder, you recognize.
Mr. Massey, I have a question and then a comment. You mentioned, I think, an August deadline. What's the origin of that deadline?
It's going to the Board of County Commissioners for Phillipsburg County, since they're the lead agency, they're the one that's administering the program. So they have requested that all the other local governments that are participating in the program approve the interlocal before it gets approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
And that's scheduled to go to the BOCC when?
August 15th.
Okay.
We've got
All right.
time.
I don't want to throw a cog in this. Obviously, this hasn't been handled very well, and there hasn't been a lot of coordination, and there's been unless somebody else wants to tell me here, I know I haven't been briefed on this at all. I don't know if you guys have in the last couple of weeks or specifically related to this contract. So there was a lot of balls that were dropped. I don't think anybody here is happy about it. At the same time, I've tried to be supportive of the ferry, and I'm willing to be supportive of the ferry for one more year, pursuant to Mr. Massey's suggestion. So if we vote to approve 22, the next motion coming out of my mouth would be an annual checkup, probably in April of every year, to make sure that, and maybe that's to the CRA board, because the CRA board is the one that's funding. So maybe that annual checkup would be delivered to the CRA board to make sure the CRA board wants to continue funding it. And that would be every April. So, Mr. Chairman, I hear your frustration. I think I'm frustrated, and I'm sure some other council members might be, with the lack of process and the lack of briefing. But I'm willing to move forward with it. And I'll move 22.
All right, 22 has been moved, Mr. Dingfelder, second by Mr. Maniscalco. I want to support it this time only, but I don't like being told something that's not, and I don't like having to put my signature on something that is not, and I don't like being told something at the 9th hour. We keep saying this, folks. Please stop doing this. Don't put us in that position. We're not going to put you in that position, so don't put us in that position. Motion's on the floor. Roll call vote.
Miranda,
No.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco, Vieira,
Yes, and I wanted to say just after the vote, but go ahead.
Citro,
Yes.
and Goose.
Yes.
Motion carried with Miranda voting no.
Let me follow up.
Mr. Vieira was first. Mr. Dingfelder, let you follow up. We need to bring this on a landing. We want to get out at least by 3 o'clock. We can
And
move
just
this
really
agenda.
fast, if I may, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, on the ferry, I came to council fully supportive of it, and the longer I'm here, the more of a skeptic I become. I'm just being honest. One of the things I'd like to, and Councilman Dingfelder is going to make a motion. I wanted to add something to that, if I may. I like the fact that we're going to continue to have, looking over this on what is it, 8 or 9 months or whatever it is, and whatnot. I think with the $50,000 that we're given, we are going to get some bang for our buck. But again, long-term, I'm a skeptic on this. I think this is more transportainment in many ways, as I see it, with the present arrangement that we have. I'm a skeptic. I'm not opposed. I'm just a skeptic. Thank you.
Dingfelder, you recognize.
Thank you. Mr. Vieira, you said there was an additional something you wanted me to add?
I'll first hear yours.
All
if you
right,
don't
so my motion would be to request that city staff report to us as the CRA board. I know it's a little unorthodox, Mr. Massey, but here we are. But report to us as the CRA board annually for the term of this, the rest of the term of this contract in April, to give us a comprehensive update on the operations and finances of the ferry service.
You recognize, Mr. Vieira?
I'll second it. I wanted to have a friendly amendment, if I may. One of the things a former Councilman Reddick, talked about that began my skepticism, he asked, how is this being promoted and where is this being promoted? Where are they doing advertisement for the ferry? In other words, getting to the idea that is it just being advertised in one part of the city? I mean, taking a look at East Hampton, Sulphur Springs, University area, et cetera, a point that Councilman Reddick made that I think, resonated with me. So if you're amenable to that in terms of how is it being advertised?
I think it's a great amendment.
So the friendly amendment would be to include in the report the promotional activities as well as perhaps the diversity activities.
Precisely.
And I'll accept that as a friendly
Thank you, sir.
amendment.
You recognize Mr. Carlson?
Yeah, another friendly amendment would be to invite HMS to present. In fact, maybe a separate motion. We shouldn't get HMS to come present sooner than later because they can explain to you. First of all, it's been very successful, barring COVID. It was very, very successful in the last 2 or 3 years. But the problem is that it's not running in a way that commuters can use it. And so we need to figure out how we can bridge to that kind of service so that we can get that it will be a reliable alternative form of transportation. And then we won't have these questions that we have anymore.
It might be successful, but it's not accessible for this whole city. And I'll tell you why, because I've had several seniors over in East Tampa who were always saying, well, why doesn't the recreation department let us get on that ferry, or why can't we have a part of that ferry? So it may be successful for some entertainment, but it ain't successful for this whole city and some of the other communities. I think Mr. Vieira is right in the skepticism of that, and also Mr. Dingfeld is right of the diversity of how we're marketing it for everyone can be on the ferry.
So I'll add as a friendly amendment for Mr. Carlson to include an invitation by staff to HMS Ferries, Inc. To join us annually at that April meeting as well.
Motion on the floor. The amendment has been granted by Mr. Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Did you want a roll call vote? Oh,
Roll call vote. That's right, Mr. Mayor's opposed. Roll call vote.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Maniscalco? Yes. Vieira? Yes. Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
No.
And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried with Miranda voting no.
All right, next item. Okay. Got 32 out the way earlier, Mr. Citro. We're at 33, provide an update. I think we let them go, correct, Mr. Dingfelder? You said you're good with that? 33, we're good with that, Mr. Shelby, earlier?
Hold on.
Randy, you want to hit those 14 points?
No, I'll communicate directly with Carol and Randy on that.
Here comes Randy. All right, he's up. Go ahead and bring him up. He's already up on the screen, so go ahead and bring him up.
Well, so Randy, you're here and gone.
There he
is. Mr. Goers, so we really appreciate it, and I know the SOG folks really appreciate all the work that you and your staff are doing in response to their items of concern. There are a few items in there, and I know you asked if we could talk to you in advance, but I didn't get a chance to. I apologize, but there are a few items in there where you said this is staff's position. Well, it might not be council's position, so I was going to bring some of those up today, but I'll defer that for another day. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. Item 34, sidewalks. So Vic was up earlier.
And if I may, a reminder, I need to leave in about 20 minutes or so. But
We got you, Mr. Beer. I'm going to try to get us out of here, sir. I'm going to try to get us out of here. All right, item 34.
Afternoon, Chair and Council. Vic Vide, Director of Mobility Department. I'm here for item 34. This is related to the motion made by Councilman Dingfelder and Carlson on April 22nd. If you recall, that was the sidewalk workshop where we presented our first draft of recommendations in response to Walk Bike Tampa's recommendations to council related to code changes with the goal of increasing overall deployment of sidewalks within the city. This is an update or a follow-up on that in response to the motion made by Councilman Dingfelder and Carlson that asked us to look at a specific section within the code, and that was section 22-103, item G2, which deals with exceptions. Again, our recommendations today come from the spirit of increasing overall sidewalk deployment to be in consistency with our Vision Zero program, with what the community wants, and to make sure that particularly around areas like schools and parks, we have the kind of sidewalks that we need. And over and above, on top of the recommendations that we're about to make in the presentation, we also recognize that there are steps that the city needs to take, the mobility department, in conjunction with other departments, to track and administer our recommendations properly and make sure that we reinvest any kind of fees into sidewalks appropriately. So at this time, I will hand it over to the person that has shepherded this whole process from the mobility department, Danny Jorgensen, and she will present our recommendations. Danny?
Good afternoon. So Danny Jorgensen with the Mobility Department.
Hello.
I want to do a quick recap from the April 22nd council workshop. Just to review, currently sidewalks are funded through local option gas tax, which also funds many of our other programs, multimodal impact fees, which are assigned by districts, of course, and no funds are collected in Drew Park, East Tampa, West Tampa, or Ybor, and also our sidewalk in Lucy. So as included with the memo we submitted, the proposed code modifications were included, and per council's request, you'll find that item G2 was struck through. So that would eliminate the exception. So you'll note that it says if it's not required or not practical currently, sidewalks sometimes don't have to be constructed, and also in lieu fees are not paid. So this removal of the exception would cause either a developer to have to pay the in lieu fee or construct the sidewalk. Additionally, the current in lieu fee is $29 per linear foot. The city's construction costs are a bit more in line with about $75 on average per linear foot. That cost does not include any engineering, design, or survey. Our capital sidewalk costs are much higher. So this is just what we can do without engineering, design, or survey. So the reason for the proposed increase is $75 includes root pruning, grading, fill, and other things that are required to make a level sidewalk. Also recommended is 22-104, item B, that says construction costs shall reflect true costs to the city to design, mobilize, and construct the sidewalk. That's consistent with other definition of construction costs throughout the code. This recommendation, like Vic mentioned, is also in line with council's resolution from 2015, which makes us a Vision Zero city. We prioritize our most vulnerable roadway users, those are our pedestrians and our cyclists, especially near schools. So that's why this is so critical. As part of this process, we did engage with TBBA, the Tampa Bay Builders Association, as well as Walk Bike Tampa and Sidewalk Stompers. And so just to summarize everything, we agree with council's recommendation to eliminate the loophole in 22-103, which is section G2. We also agree with the goal, of course, to construct more sidewalks, thereby striving to achieve Vision Zero. And we recommend to increase the sidewalk in lieu fee to $75. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and so that's it.
Any questions? Ms. Dingfelder, you recognized.
Vic, you magically appeared. I just have a couple of comments. For one thing, I appreciate the work that both of you have put in and that legal has put into this. It's definitely a team effort, and I really want to give a shout out to all the folks, Walk Bike Tampa, the Sidewalk Stompers, et cetera. Janet Zink Scherberger and everybody, Emily, who've been involved in this. Eliminating this loophole is huge. I don't want to get into the history of it again. We've already talked about that, but Janet on the phone this morning pointed out that that loophole has basically left a hole in our funding to the tune of about $1 million a year, that if we had all these homes that have been built without sidewalks and without putting into the fund, could have generated $1 million a year to build sidewalks elsewhere, and especially around schools. So we've really missed out an opportunity over the last 10 years to do that. And shame on us as a city, but we'll move forward in a positive direction. I had 3 other suggestions that I've sort of been accumulating from the community, and I wanted to throw this out before we come back for first reading. Vic and I talked about, I think, 2 of these last night. The first one, and Mr. Citro, I want to give you a shout out for this one. You often talk, Joe, about the need for sidewalks near schools. And what I'd like to do is make sure that any home, except for affordable housing, but any other home that's within a quarter mile of a school has to build the sidewalk. That they, period. And you know, unless there's a determination that there's a absolute physical impossibility that they can't, but I don't want to give that builder the option. That's the only way. Well, it's often the only way these sidewalks get built is one house at a time. And if that house is within a quarter mile of a school, I think that there shouldn't be any out whatsoever. Somebody spoke really eloquently this morning, and they said, if you build a house, you should build a sidewalk. And I think that's a good message in our community. So that's my first suggestion. My next suggestion is easier, and that would be an annual report to council about how the sidewalk program is going and how the trust fund is going and how many miles of sidewalk we're building and that sort of thing. That's an easy one. And then the last one, and this was suggested to me by somebody in the community last night, that currently the administration has flexibility to take the money that's collected and spend it either to build new sidewalks or to maintain existing sidewalks. And I think that's wrong. I think the money, the fee in lieu money, should be expressly carved out in the ordinance to build new sidewalks. If the city needs to maintain sidewalks, they can find the money elsewhere, we can find the money elsewhere. But I think when the developers contribute into this fund, it's a fee in lieu, then I think that the community and the developers all deserve that money should go to the construction of new sidewalks. Now, I think, Vic, in your defense, it probably usually is the case, but I have heard that on occasion that money can drift over into maintenance as well. So anyway, those are my 3 suggestions. Mr. Chairman, I'll leave that with you, and if Vic wants to respond, I'm okay with that.
You're recognized, Vic.
Councilman, if I could respond real quick. You are correct, Councilman, that we do use some of the funds that are collected right now for maintenance. However, should your suggestion and recommendations over and above the recommendations that we have just made is the desire of council, then it's the pleasure of the council to move forward, and we will comply for it.
Mr. Wren, I saw your hand, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I thought for a long time that we had a lieu and fee, and you had a counting of what happened to the sidewalk money. Am I correct or incorrect?
That is correct.
Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is, I mean, I can see pictures. If you go back to the April 22nd of 2001 on the sidewalk workshop, and this wasn't from my camera, it was from Transforming Tampa Tomorrow, you'll see where there's violations of the ADA where you built around a tree not a 5-foot wide sidewalk, but something like 2.5 feet wide that only a gopher turtle could go through. That's number 1. I'm not talking to you, sir, but I'm just trying to lighten it up a little bit so I don't get hysterical here. In the next page, you'll see that where there's a sidewalk and there's a ditch. Now, let me see. Old Charlie's gonna go tell the person buying a house, listen, I know you got a ditch there, but I don't care what you have a ditch or not. You're gonna have to pay me if you have a 50-foot lot, $3,750. If you have a 60-foot lot, $4,500. If you have a 75-foot lot, $5,150. And if you have a 100-foot lot, you're gonna pay me $7,500 to put a sidewalk somewhere else because you have a ditch. That's what this says. So that's fine and dandy. We don't give them an option where you can say earlier on your, Mr. Citro, on your solar and energy, we don't say you can put that $7,500, put it by your solar system for another $5,000, and you'll be doing a great favor to everybody. No, you're going to do what I say because I'm the government. So that person's got a ditch, and now you're going to take part of his property because you can't build the ditch over a sidewalk. So now you're going to build a sidewalk on his property, and the person who's walking down the street with no sidewalk from 3 or 4 blocks says, oh, there's a sidewalk. Let me jump the ditch, or I can walk 60 feet or 50 feet or 100 feet or 75 feet so I can comply with the ordinance. What the hell are we? I'm for sidewalks around the schools. I'm for building sidewalks on every new thing, providing there's a guidance of how we do it. I'm not going to tell everybody blanket, cover it all. Let me have the money so we can attest that we have sidewalk. How long is it going to take? Let's be realistic. You look at a sidewalk and you look at a neighborhood for 4 or 5 blocks, and you look at what? The aging or the quality of houses that are there. So now you take back, well, that house was built 20 years ago. It's going to be here for another 70, 80 years. But I'm going to make somebody put a sidewalk. There's none there. Who in the world is going to walk on it? Can you answer that?
Sure, I'll be happy to address the concern, Councilman. So if I understand your concern correctly, you're concerned that we may have sporadic deployments of sidewalk with no connections built in a timely manner for people to be able to utilize those facilities. And that's a valid observation. The flip side of that is what we have today, which is hardly any sidewalks at all. And that's why I mentioned that it's a balance between right-sizing the fee, and also there is an internal responsibility for the city to administer this program correctly and follow up with priorities that abut with these deployments on an annual basis. And we'll cover that in annual reporting as needed. But the overall intention, and we've spoken to other cities about this as well, is to get more sidewalk built, and we feel that the recommendation that we're putting forth will do that.
Sometimes it's good when you're here a long time. Let me tell you why. I never forget there was a house on Gray, and the lady put pavers all the way out to the middle, to the street. So they called the lady, said, you got to take them out. She didn't want to take them out. And now every house that I see built, every house that is purchased, and I'll show it to you. In fact, the police station's got a bus. Why don't we ask them to take us for a ride, all of us? And I'll show you something you won't believe. All the houses got, you know what? Pavers all the way to the street. Now, how the hell are you going to build the sidewalk over pavers? That's going on right now as we're speaking today. So I see that, and I can show you something on Azeel and Dale Mabry where the sidewalks don't even match from your own report on April 21. Excuse me, April 22nd. I made a mistake, and I don't want to make that kind of a mistake. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not against sidewalks. I want to see how it happens. I don't want to see somebody get hurt. What would you rather have, a sidewalk that ain't never going to be done for the last 100 years in the street again, or somebody have a solar panel that they pay? We have to at least give them an option. We just can't say, hey, put it on because we say so. Doesn't make sense. Somebody, people live on a budget, and that budget is to pay for that house. How in the world am I going to tell somebody you got to pay an extra, you have a 100-foot lot, $7,500 because I said so, and there's no sidewalk there? What's going to happen if this ever goes to court? Would you want to try that case? Tell me, would you want to try that case? Does any attorney want to try that case in the city? Raise up your hand. Thank you. I rest my case.
Mr. Vieira, we'll see you, sir. We know you got to get out.
And if I may, 2 things. Number one, if I wouldn't try that case, depends on how much they pay me. No, I'm joking. No, but with regards to this, you'll have to excuse me. I have to leave my son. It's a parent-teacher conference, and parking lot's gonna be full, so I gotta get there early. I am in support of this, just for the record. I just wanted to state my support. I think this is something I would support at this point. I don't know exactly what motion's gonna be made, but just the general idea as I understand it. So just for the record, but I have to go, so please excuse me.
Mr. Citro, you're recognized.
I thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I am in support of this, but Councilman Miranda brings up some very valid points. With a 50-foot frontage lot, it's going to cost, what was that, Councilman Miranda?
$3,750.
Which, in today's standards, is usually 1% of what a house costs. But however, there are those places in this town, all over the city, that have drainage ditches. How much of our pure projects or how much of our pipe projects are going to go into filling in those ditches? Because it's no longer just a $75 a linear foot. Now you got to bring in pipes, you got to cover up those pipes, and then you got to put sidewalks on top of them. So there has got to be some sort of carve-outs or something here. I am dedicated to putting sidewalks around schools. I don't want to see kids walking to school in streets. I don't want to see mothers pushing their strollers in the streets. So I am in support of this, but we do have to think about how this is going to affect everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Miranda, you bring up some interesting discussion. There are lots of people who move to our city and have to pay into the public school system. But let me finish. But when they do, some of them might not have children.
I don't.
Right.
I'm making an investment.
All right, point of order, point
I'm
of
making
order,
an
point of
investment.
order.
Right.
Point of
So,
order.
and
You got the floor.
that's the point, is sometimes you have to pay in to these things as a societal goal. You might send your children to a private school, but you're still paying into that public school system. This, to me, it's kind of similar. Yes, if they might build a brand new house south of Gandy or South Tampa or wherever for $1 million. And as Joe pointed out, Joe did the math just now, even if it's $5,000, if it's $1 million house, and there's a lot of $1 million houses being built, if it's $1 million house, that's half of 1% of the total cost of that new house. That is not a deal breaker for that person who's building that $1 million house, nor for the developer who's building it. And I'm familiar with all of that process. The bottom line is, if they do have that ditch, yes, they will not get a sidewalk, as Vic pointed out. They will not get that sidewalk, but they've contributed to the better good, and more importantly, that sidewalk might be built across the street, okay? Because now we're going to have that $5,000, and their next door neighbor who built a $1 million house, they've contributed $5,000. The next door neighbor, $1 million house, they've contributed $5,000, and we could take that $15,000 because there's no ditch across the street, and we could build a decent sidewalk across the street, and maybe it's close to a school too. So I know that traditionally we have created exemptions and lots of opportunity for builders and new home builders and new homeowners to avoid paying these fees, and I think that day is over. It's done. You build a house, you build a sidewalk. But anyway, I'd like to put a motion on the floor to not only approve staff recommendations, Mr. Chairman, you like to bring things home, to approve staff recommendation, but also to add to that the 3 items that I suggested, or that have been suggested to me by the community, which is having no exemptions within a quarter mile of schools, to mandate an annual report, and Charlie indicates maybe we're already doing that, but put it in the ordinance so it's there forever, and also to mandate that money paid into the system should build new sidewalks and not be used for maintenance.
Motion on the floor.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Seconded by, motion on the floor, Mr. Dingfelder, say Mr. Carlson. We're gonna circle around before we land. We're gonna go give deference to Mr. Miranda. We'll go to Mr. Citro, and then we'll come back to bring this in for a landing. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First is not the best way to go, because I remember what the last person said best. But let me say this. In my opinion, you cannot mandate somebody who's got a ditch Pay $5,000, the guy across the street gets a sidewalk. What? So I'm gonna pay $5,000. What am I? Buy the guy a car. Tell him you want him to pay for your solar system. Tell him you want him to pay for your kids to go to school, to private school. It's the same thing. You're asking somebody to subsidize somebody else's sidewalk.
Charlie,
When he
can I
themselves.
clarify? Can I
Just a second,
clarify
just a
one
second.
thing?
I'm not talking to you, sir.
I know.
I'm not talking to
I
you.
just
I'm just
wanted to
making a
clarify.
statement. I'm just making a
Let him finish.
statement.
One
If
more.
we said all, we don't know, and I'm not against sidewalks. I've said it and I'm saying it again. But there's got to be a way to understand what we're doing without interfering with the rights of people. If you have a house, and I'm gonna go back next week, I'm gonna picture every damn house in West Tampa that I can. And I'm gonna show you the ditches, and I'm gonna show you the driveways, and I'm gonna show you driveways with and without pavers. And they're all the way to the street. Now, how in the world are you gonna put a sidewalk over either one? A paver or a driveway? Unless you tear them all up and you go much more than what you're talking about here. Then it's gonna cost you not $70 a foot, linear foot, it's gonna cost you $150 a linear foot, because you gotta tear up somebody's yard and maybe do damage, and you're right away, do damage to their yard. I don't know what's gonna happen. But we're dealing something here again without even knowing what we're figuring. The administration right here hasn't told us how many miles of sidewalks around the schools, how many are there within a quarter of a mile. We don't know anything, but we're gonna shoot the gun and hope we hit a turkey so we can have Thanksgiving dinner. Is that it? That's what I see here. It's not what I want or what I don't want. I want the facts and the figures so we can understand how many miles are there where there's ditches in front of us. And I can tell you there's a lot of miles. West Tampa and East Tampa, number one and number two, one way or the other, and having ditches and you can't build sidewalks. And then how many roads that the house is so close that you can't build a sidewalk? They're there too. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna take their property, build a sidewalk? I don't know. That's what I don't know. And I don't know, maybe you all know, but I don't know. So that's my argument. My argument is very simple. By their own standards on what they gave us on April 22nd of 2021, they themselves admit that they can't put the sidewalks where everybody wants them at. So they're making those people pay, and the system that I heard about the school system, I'm not even taking that as an advice, because that's a knowledge. Everybody wants people to have an education. But you have a better education, you can study better, you can do better, and you can get out of where you're at with an education. Don't tell me that you put a sidewalk, you're going to have a better job, because that doesn't work. And I heard about people here dying. 41 people died in the city of Tampa last year in the street, and I'm sorry to hear that, and I wish there was none. But none of these tell me that they died because there was a lack of sidewalk. That's right here in your Why Tampa Moves. On average, there's 41 people die in the streets of the city every year. You don't tell me where. My degree is not in common sense. It's in real facts. And when I hear that, and I look at it, and I say, well, where did they die? In the interstate? On an intersection? By a hit-and-run driver going 100 miles an hour? How? On the streets? Did they die on the sidewalk? This was about sidewalk, this one you gave me in April 22nd of 2021. And that's all I want. I want clarity on what I'm voting on. That's all.
I think we got your point, Mr. Miranda. Mr. Citro.
Councilman Miranda has said a lot that I was going to say. No, I'm done. I finished.
All right. Mr. Carlson has been heard, and Ms. Dingfellow, you can rebut Mr. Miranda. Mr. Carlson?
I'm all right.
Mr. Carlson?
I just want to say I hadn't had a chance to say anything on this. I first met Emily Hinsdale from Sidewalk Stompers about 4 years ago, and instantly got excited about the issue of trying to help with sidewalks. Since then, I've been to events that she's had, and Janet Scherberger, and lots of neighborhood associations. And many of the people who spoke out this morning talked about their ADA issues, their safety issues. There are streets with kids and families walking through the middle of the street, people in wheelchairs going through the street. It's very dangerous. It's a public safety issue that we have to try to address. It's not safe to have everybody driving through those, walking through those streets, especially since we also have speeding problems through neighborhoods. We all thought that All for Transportation money was going to solve it. I think going from like $600,000 a year to $6 million or something like that, but all of that went away. And we've got to find a way to solve this. Here we are, we've been in office 2.5 years, and we really haven't been able to do anything. And this is a problem that should have been fixed a long time ago. I think it's the start of these solutions. By the way, Mr. Dingfelder, we put some time ago on the agenda to talk specifically about the houses that are just opposite schools that don't have sidewalks because they can't build crosswalks there. I don't remember what the outcome of that was. But we've got to move faster on these sidewalks, and we've got to be creative and innovative. I think Vic and his team have been doing this, and I fully support the efforts to make our neighborhoods safer. Last thing is that because of COVID, people have been staying home. They're working at home. They're spending time at home. They're walking outside, and the things they're noticing are potholes, lack of sidewalks, flooding, and that our parks are in disrepair. And you saw the mayor's budget this morning. We're trying to address all of those, but we need to try to address them faster. Thank you.
Quick question, if I may, Mr. Chair. Quick question, Councilman Dingfelder. Hillsborough County School Board says if you live within 2 miles of a school, there's no more busing. Why a quarter mile?
Well, I tried to come up with a reasonable radius around the school to really mandate and come down hard on this issue. I think if we did, a mile or 2 around the school, you're looking at every property in town.
And that's the way Tim, my legislative aide, and I looked at it when we circled all the schools, there would be so much overlapping. May I ask if we can go a mile? It's up to you, it's your motion.
Yeah, I hate to let's make a deal, but I want to be as reasonable as possible, and how about a half mile? So that works.
Again, it's your motion. I'll support it, I was just asking.
Okay. All right, so I'll amend my motion to be a half mile. And the half mile, nobody's getting a free skate on this. And just to clarify, the half mile is just mandating that, that you're going to build a sidewalk unless you can prove a physical impossibility, that you're not going to opt out with paying the fee. And so within a half mile of the school, if that's where you decide to build a house, then that's where you're going to build a sidewalk to. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, Dingfelder has a motion on the floor. Mr. Carlos, I believe, second the motion with the 3 points Mr. Dingfelder characterized. Is that correct? Dingfelder?
And then we modified it slightly with Mr. Citro.
Now we had an amendment to that with Mr. Citro, correct?
Right.
You accept that amendment, sir?
Yes, sir. At a half mile.
No, you said half mile, I said mile.
I know, but I modified it to a half mile. That's what I said. You told me I could go anywhere I wanted.
I could walk a mile in 15 minutes, but that's something else.
Citro,
That's fine with me. Let's move on.
There's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded with an amendment. Citro, all in favor?
Aye. Or you want to vote?
All right, let's vote. Roll call.
Carlson?
Yes.
Maniscalco? Yes. Vieira? Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
No, half a mile is 880 some yards long, so you figure that's the circumference you're going to get half the city.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
And Goose?
Yes.
Motion carried with Miranda voting no and Vieira being absent at vote.
Thank you.
All right, Vic, we appreciate you. There were 2 tough items here today so far. You always stay on the field and the grind. You always keep it honest and transparent with us. That's what I like about you.
You're the man.
You got a heart of a lion, and you sit up and you tell council what we need to know so we can make our decision. And trust me, we do thank you for that. You might take some someplace else, but we appreciate you. Thank you, sir. All right. We got 35.
So my only point on 35, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Massey did, and whoever helped him write it, perhaps, if anybody, they did a great job on their memorandum telling us the current status of impact fees as related to Tallahassee and as related to us. I think at the end of the day, when we read the memo, we basically, and Mr. Massey, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but based on the memo that I read, we basically, as a city, have a right and the ability to put into place public safety impact fees that on a very fair basis would help us raise money to buy these expensive ambulances, to build new fire stations, to buy expensive $1 million fire trucks, et cetera, and also police vehicles and police stations, perhaps. But anyway, with all that said, I believe Mr. Massey has told us we can do this under very sort of limited constraints that he has identified in his memorandum. And the only reason I wanted to discuss it is I want to request that the legal department work with the administration and come up with a tangible impact fee, public safety impact fee ordinance, and come back to us within the next couple of months, and I'm flexible on that time frame.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I will second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, what we have, a couple of months?
Mr.
Mr. Massey, you're recognized, sir.
Mr. Dingfelder and council, I'm happy to work with the administration to come forward with a public safety impact fee. It will require that, we do an analysis and a study. I do think we need to also hold workshops on it per the new legislation that was passed. Tallahassee's watching what local governments do in the way of impact fees very, very closely right now. So I don't think we'll be in a position in 60 days to enact an ordinance, but we certainly can come back within 30 or 60 days to report how we're going to progress toward getting an ordinance in place. The other thing, just to make it clear on the record, under Florida law, impact fees are subject to what's called the dual rational nexus test. So new development would have to pay an impact fee. It has to be proportionate to what their impacts are to the system, and then it has to be used in a way that addresses their needs to some degree. So you can't use impact fees to make up the whole deficit that we may have in the public safety arena. But obviously, it does provide a mechanism to provide for new development to help pay its fair share of those services.
Okay.
Yes.
And Mr. Massey, I apologize. I kind of got excited thinking about the ordinance, but I am aware we have to do the study. We probably have to hire a consultant to help us, guide us. It probably is going to take a year to do it. So my motion is modified, Mr. Citro, with your pleasure, to request that city staff and legal come back to us with a timeline and a sort of a generic outline of where we need to go and how we need to do this, and to come back to us in a month and a half or so, 45 days.
October 21st, is that okay, Mr. Massey?
That's fine.
I think Joe already seconded it.
Whatever.
All right, motion on the floor by Mr.
For clarity, if I may.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, you
And
recognized.
is this in addition to the sidewalk?
This has nothing to do with the sidewalk. This is a standalone motion related to public safety impact fees, which is just police and fire.
We clear, sir? All right. Motion on the floor by Mr. Dingfelder, second by Mr. Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed?
Within 45 days, what date do we come on to?
October 21st.
Staff report. Thank you, Mr. Massey.
All right, we will not get a report from 36 because we got the memorandum. Everyone's satisfied with that. We'll move on to item number 37, and the cemeteries.
Good afternoon, council. This 37 is cemeteries. Okay, yes, so thank you so much, city, council members.
I take it this is Ms. Nguyen?
Thank you for accommodating me.
We don't have
I take it, we don't have you visual. I take it this is Ms. Nguyen?
Here I am.
All right, there she is. All right.
So thank you so much for accommodating me. I know you asked for a report, but I really wanted to take this time to explain, just update you on our cemetery, some of the current issues, as well as take a moment to explain the cemetery task force. So that's why I did not submit a report and wanted to come before you. I'm not going to go through the whole history of how we got here with like the Zion cemeteries. I think we know that. I just wanted to provide you with an update as to where we are and what the city has been doing, in case you're not as familiar. With Zion, the city has provided in-kind legal services for the creation of a Zion Preservation and Maintenance Society. It's a nonprofit organization that's spearheaded by community members. The nonprofit held its first meeting, official meeting, on October 15th of this year. As well as with Zion, we directed the city's Arts and Cultural Affairs Division, led by Robin Nye, to coordinate a community design process for a temporary and a permanent memorial to commemorate those individuals who were interred at Zion. And then finally, in February of 2020, February of last year, the city allocated $50,000 to match Hillsborough County's and the state's funding for the memorial, a total of $150,000 that can be accessed by the nonprofit for the temporary memorial. I just want to make sure that we are all clear, and I want to emphasize the fact that we are working with our community partners, and we will continue to work with our community partners with Zion. Tampa Housing Authority is taking a lead, and we are on their timeline. So if you feel that there's not a lot of momentum with this, that is in the purview and oversight of the Housing Authority. In terms of Memorial Park, I think we came recently within the last month or so with an update, but just wanted to emphasize that we are currently or will continue to oversee the maintenance, particularly during this rainy season at Memorial Park. We want to make sure that the cemetery is properly maintained, and we are working with our legislatures to update the Florida statutes related to cemeteries to address the properties that are with unmarked graves, as well as those cemeteries that are no longer profitable to the private owners, so that they will not fall into disrepair or disarray. In terms of the Italian Club, they reached out to us as a result of an article that was posted, I think it was about a month or two ago, and we have been working with them, and recently we suggested that they work closely with the African American Cemetery Alliance of Tampa Bay. The reason why we made that suggestion is because this is a group that is spearheaded with professionals from nonprofit organizations, with the University of South Florida, with people who have worked in this area, in this space before. So they are connecting with the Italian Club so that they can get momentum on some of their issues with the unmarked graves or buried graves or unaccounted for graves, particularly the ones that were addressed or alleged that they're in front of the mausoleum. So I just wanted to make sure that you had an update on what's going on with those particular items. Now, in terms of the cemetery task force, I wanted to level set to make sure everyone understood what that means. What we're doing is, as we get a number of these cemetery issues coming forward, we want to make sure that within the city we do due diligence with assessing and vetting those concerns, and we have a streamlined approach internally as well as how we can direct externally on steps that should be considered. So we developed a task force that consists of arts and cultural affairs, representatives from legal, parks and recreation, government affairs, just a number of us, so that when these issues come before us, and particularly with, we anticipate that as the governor's task force on abandoned cemeteries take away, that we will get a lot more interest. So we wanted to make sure that we had a consolidated effort and a strategic approach and how we intake these concerns and how we address them. So I just wanted to share that with you, wanted to have that opportunity, and I'm available to answer any questions should you have them.
Any questions, gentlemen? Going once, any questions? Ms. Nguyen, thank you for your presentation.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
All right. All right, we've dealt with 38 earlier. That'll be dealt with in October. We've come to the final landing spot. Mr. Maniscalco, do you have anything for new business? Mr. Carlson, anything for new business?
Yeah, I have two, hopefully quick ones. Kimberly Overman recently suggested building audit process for the county, similar to one that Broward County had proposed. I don't think we've discussed this issue yet, but she and Lisa Monticelli sent me theirs and suggested that the city try to adopt an audit process for buildings. Sorry, this is about the falling of the building in Miami that we talked about this morning. And so the idea is to audit or review the buildings on a more regular basis. So they were suggesting this motion, which is that I would request that staff bring back a report on possible implementation of a process to audit buildings modeled after County Commissioner Kimberly Overman's proposal to the Board of County Commissioners.
Motion has been filed by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Miranda.
Question.
Mr. Shelby, you're recognized.
Just if there's a date associated with that.
No,
I
forgot
how much time do you think staff would need?
What do you recommend for?
I don't know how long something like that would be, and maybe there's somebody from legal who would recommend.
Could we say, looks like, just opening it up, December 2nd, is that too? That gives people plenty of time.
December 2nd is quite a ways off if that's what the
Ms.
council.
Zellman is here, she'll tell us.
Thank you. Ms. Zellman?
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for December 2nd. It does take a while to put a report together
And the county is still doing theirs, so that will give them time to finish theirs, and then we can look at theirs and try to.
That would be helpful as well.
So we're good with December 2nd, Ms. Zellman?
Yeah, I think that's good.
All right, December 2nd it is. Mr. Dingfelder,
Question on the motion.
you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill, I'm totally supportive of the concept and the motion. I'm just wondering, what if anything is the state doing in this regard? And I think I did read right after the tragedy that the state was putting together a panel of building experts, and I anticipate that at some point in the spring, the legislature would be addressing it. But have we heard anything along those lines, Ms. Zellman or Mr. Carlson or Mr. Shelby? And how would that impact the efforts we might do?
I have not personally heard that, Mr. Dingfelder, but of course, as we all know, the state building code does govern, so it would not surprise me.
I could add that to the motion, but I think they look at state law all the time anyway, so the idea here is just to get this rolling. If some state supersedes it, we can always take it off the agenda.
So just as a friendly amendment to make sure that they contact the appropriate folks in Tallahassee to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel.
And if I can, Mr. Chairman, I would suspect that this may be a subject of discussion at next week's Florida League of Cities meeting, so if anybody's attending, it would be appropriate to keep their ear to the ground with that. And if I can also just remind council that there are county ordinances that have the effect of encompassing the cities as well. So it may be something that would be an intergovernmental discussion between the administration and Hillsborough County as to a unified approach. If that's
By the way,
something.
I've also had people who live in condos reach out. Maybe you all have had the same thing. People are concerned about their condos and the status of them. You're not?
Mine was built as a civil defense shelter.
Awesome.
All right, so we got a motion.
I added at the end, in context of any new state laws. Sorry.
So we have a motion on the floor, Mr. Carlson, a second by Mr. Miranda, I believe it was. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. What else, sir?
Thank you. And the last one is, I found out recently, Jenny Carey introduced me to Gianna Russo. Somehow I missed that we have a city wordsmith, and she's just a delightful person. And
The city what?
city wordsmith. So we still have James Tokley, who's the poet laureate.
Oh, poet laureate.
But Gianna Russo is a literature professor and a poet and an author. And I would love to have her come. I would like to make a motion to request that Tampa's official wordsmith, Gianna Russo, appear before council for 5 minutes to discuss her position and to read a couple short poems. And I didn't pick a date for that either. Should we pick December 2nd? I think it would be good for the public to hear her, and it's great promotion for literature. She was chosen by the mayor, and so it would be great to highlight and celebrate that.
December 2nd it is. Mr. Carlson put a motion on the floor. Mr. Dingfellow is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank
December 2nd.
That's it.
Anything else, sir?
That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Citro?
Move to receive and file. Oh, sorry, nothing from me.
Not yet. Not yet. Mr. Dingfellow?
I've got a couple. So in regard to this issue of privately initiated text amendments, we had asked Mr. Shelby to come back on August 26th to do a survey of all the other jurisdictions, blah, blah, blah. But in the meantime, the administration apparently has taken that role and is going to be giving us a report later in the near future. So with that, I don't want to burden Mr. Shelby with that task since it's rather duplicative. With that, I'll make a motion to strike the request from Mr. Shelby's task list.
Motion by Mr. Dingfellow, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And thank you, Mr. Chair. A while back, a resident, a very active resident, Kelly, over in Ybor City had been complaining about the fact that sexual predators were being housed in Ybor City in numbers far exceeding anywhere else in the city. And I think that prior to me coming back 2 years ago, Mr. Miranda or Mr. Maniscalco, I think that issue had been talked about, but she's been emailing my office saying, you know, that we're not doing enough and that we're not keeping a handle on it. So I don't know a whole lot about that issue, but I would ask that TPD come and give us a report about the housing of sexual predators in our community and specifically in Ybor City.
Motion by Mr. Dingfellow. Mr. Shelby, you're
That
ready.
would be a date.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's see, October. We're finished with budget.
You have
What you got?
1 or 2 staff reports on the 21st, unless you want to sit.
October 21st, under staff reports.
Dingfellow's got a motion for 21st. Mr. Maniscalco, second. All in favor?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Shelby, you're ready.
I noticed that Ms. Zellman was looking to be recognized. I don't know whether she wants to have any input.
But when you're done with this vote, I have a question. I apologize.
All right, motion. You have a question on this item, this motion, Mr. Zellman?
This motion. So please go ahead and then I'll ask my question.
All right. There's a motion from Mr. Dingfellow, October 21st. TPD coming and represent sexual predators. Mr. Maniscalco seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank
Ms. Zellman, you're recognized.
Oh.
And I apologize, I wanted to go back to the discussion about the privately initiated text amendment research. I'm getting questions as to whether it's accurate that the staff is doing the research rather than Mr. Shelby. Mr. Dingfellow, can you clarify? I'm meaning the staff have not assumed that responsibility.
Well, let me just say that the focus has changed, and staff has made a recommendation as related to privately initiated text amendments, and so therefore I don't believe that Mr. Shelby's research is necessary at this point, and that's why I moved to strike it.
And if I could follow up on that, Mr. Dingfelder? May I,
Recognized.
Mr. Chairman? Thank you. I just want to direct your attention to August 26th, which was the date that my report was continued to. And I just want you to please be aware that there was something tied to it, and that was the recommendations by Abby Feely. And if you look at it, I'm going to ask the clerk to modify that the calendar notation, because it's no longer to be heard with the motion above, which passed by council to remove that report. My understanding is that there is a proposal that is being worked on by the administration to be presented that day, and I believe that's what you're referring to, Mr. Dingfelder.
Exactly. I think we're sort of beyond Mr. Shelby's research. It's not necessary, and that Ms. Post and her team working with legal have come up with a proposal. There's Ms. Post.
Ms. Shelby.
And thank you. Just a reminder, council, that, and maybe Ms. Post will address this, but staff had previously presented what research it had done, and that there was no expectation by council or by staff that there would be additional research relative to that. It would be as to the proposal, and I don't know how Ms. Post wishes to address that.
Ms. Post, you're recognized.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chair. Carol Post, Administrator for Development and Economic Opportunity. Maybe I can clarify, at least from our perspective, the understanding was that Mr. Shelby was conducting a more comprehensive study of the jurisdictions that engage with a PETA process of some sort, and from the staff was going to rely upon that to help inform our proposal. Mr. Dingfelder is correct. We have the outline and the contours of a proposal to bring back to council in response to a prior motion around the privately initiated text amendment process. But we were looking to Mr. Shelby's research to really buttress that and inform it. If the council feels that that's no longer necessary, that's certainly the prerogative, but we did not do any further jurisdictional research on the matter. We just simply started to shape a proposal that we felt was responsive. I think it might be informative to better understand what other jurisdictions are doing, but I'll leave that to you to make a final conclusion.
Mr. Dingfelder, you recognized.
Well, why don't we leave it the way it is right now with the motion that passed a few minutes ago, and if we come to August 26th, and after we hear staff's proposal, if we feel that additional research is necessary, then we'll circle back and make that request again. So I'd like to just leave it the way it is.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, sir?
Yes, sir. We heard a comment this morning from a young lady on Davis Island, and she said she and her neighbors are very concerned about the possibility of a 30-foot tall 5G tower being built immediately adjacent to her house. She says there are alternative locations that AT&T could use. I know the state legislature does tie our hands to a certain extent. I don't know to what extent, but I think that this is kind of urgent before this thing gets under construction. So I'd like an immediate report back from staff. I spoke with Vic about this, I think, yesterday, so it's no surprise to him. But I'd like an immediate report back from staff as related to this lady's concerns. I think she also emailed us about this as well, so you can get her name and address and contact information from the email. And do this at our next meeting, which is when?
2
weeks. 2 weeks? August 26th.
Could I,
staff report. Yes, sir.
Could I just add in?
It's your district. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I jumped in on that right away and talked to several experts in the industry and also legal. And my understanding is that state and federal law completely preempt us on that. And so I won't say the name of the company, but we figured out which company it is, and I put her in touch with somebody from that company. And so that person responded to me, and we have no power over them to get them to do anything, but I just asked that person if they could help.
Well, and I hear you, Bill, and I am aware that state and federal law has tied our hands significantly, but maybe, like the lady said this morning, maybe they just want to be good neighbors, and maybe if we offered them a better location, that wasn't as intrusive on the individual neighborhood, like a city park or something like that, you know, maybe they would voluntarily. Yeah, maybe they would voluntarily do that. I also think it's important that staff, included in my motion would be that staff reports to the entire city about this issue, because obviously this is the first time we're dealing with it, but it surely won't be the last. And if they start putting these rather large refrigerator-sized 5G towers on people, you know, immediately adjacent to people's property, then we're going to be hearing a lot more about it. So we might as well get as informed as possible. So I would just ask staff and legal to come back to us on the 26th under staff reports to give us an update on 5G towers and specifically this tower on Davis Island.
Ms. Second by Mr. Carlson, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
And trying to compete with Mr. Vieira, I have one more, but this is a fun one. Apparently we have a young man at Hillsborough High School, either graduate or attendee, who is participating in the Olympic Games as a runner. Cindy Sarf tells me that he came in 4th in the 200 meters at the age of 17. Pretty impressive. So we'll figure out a date to invite this young man to come down and get a commendation from us. His name is Erion, E-R-R-I, huh?
Kite.
Right. E-R-R-I-Y-O-N, Knighton, K-N-I-G-H-T-O-N, to come down to council and let him talk to us about his Olympic experience.
I think he's related to Leroy Lynch, who's a solid waste man.
Yeah. Well, let's invite his relative too.
All right, motion on the floor by Mr. Dingfellow, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion for the Budget Advisory Committee to present their findings on Monday, September 13, 2021, for the first 2022 budget hearing. And that's the day that they wanted. Mary called, and that's what they needed. So that's what I need.
Mr. Shelby, you recognize?
Councilman Miranda, is that the date of the first budget hearing, sir?
Yes, the first budget hearing.
It would be the first budget hearing, so it would be 5:01 in the evening.
Right, 5:01.
Thank you.
All right, that's been seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Nothing else, sir. Bye.
All right. All right, I just have one, Mr. Dingfellow. Gal, will be very quickly. I'd like to make a motion to direct development coordination to bring draft recommendations back to the City Council in the upcoming amendment cycle. One, to review the definition of storefront/residential in section 27-483 to add criteria to address the concerns of its use on a local street. Two, to examine section 2760 to add that the zoning administrator consider and include sworn evidence at city or planning commission public hearings related to specific parcel or parcels that indicate conditions that the effect of the request for relief will interfere with the rights of others as provided in chapter 27 or injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare.
Second. All right, actually, I shouldn't second. Anybody else?
Second.
Mr. Citro, second. We have a motion by Councilman Goods, second by Mr. Citro. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Mr.
opposed?
Shelby, anything for you, sir? All right. Mr. Maniscalco,
Did we have a
second.
date associated with your motion?
No, during the amendment period.
During the
Amendment period. The date's on for during the amendment period, correct, Soon?
During the chapter 27 amendment period?
It would be, I guess, during whatever the upcoming amendment
Right.
cycle is, and if,
The
Mr. Chairman, if you want to
Okay.
find out the timeline, we can
Yeah,
do
whatever
that.
the cycle is. They'll know the cycle.
Good
Whatever
deal.
the cycle is.
All right.
All right, Maniscalco, Citro, we're adjourned.
Did he-